utterly ruin a Roman aristocrat, you didn't take his life. You systematically unmade him before the eyes of everyone he knew. Consider the fate of Senator Marcus Livius in the summer of 63 BC. He stood shivering in the Roman Forum, clad only in a flimsy, near-transparent tunic, leaving him exposed to the thousands who once offered him respect. His patrician footwear was gone. His toga, the iconic white garment with its bold purple border signifying his high rank, had been torn from him and now rested in the dirt. His hands were painfully cinched behind him with coarse rope that chafed his skin raw. And in his mouth, a rough wooden gag, the kind used for livestock, cranked his jaw open, silencing any plea or protest. It was a contraption of pure debasement. A herald stood at his side, ceremoniously unfurling a lengthy scroll. In a voice that boomed across the packed forum, he began to list Marcus's transgressions for the entire city to witness. Embezzlement of state funds intended for the city's grain supply. Bribing officials to award contracts to his allies. Violating the sacred trust of the Senate itself. After every charge was announced, the herald would fall silent, creating a dramatic pause. A man holding a flagrum, a brutal whip with metal shards woven into its strands, stepped up and lashed Marcus across his bare back. The mob roared, counting each strike as one. 1, 2, 3. By the 10th lash, Marcus was openly sobbing, tears mixing with the drool that escaped his gagged mouth. His public destruction was absolute long before the physical torment had truly started. By the 20th blow, his legs had given out, and he collapsed onto the dusty ground. By the 30th, he was just making guttural, inhuman sounds, begging through the wooden block for a mercy he would never receive. Marcus Livius did not die that day in the forum. The flogging was never meant to be fatal. The officials supervising the spectacle made certain he remained conscious to experience every single moment. The true purpose of this ritual was to annihilate something far more precious to a Roman than his physical body. It was engineered to obliterate his dignitas, his honor, his standing, his very social existence, and in this, it was a total success. Within a week, Marcus took his own life. It wasn't because of his physical wounds, which were already healing under a doctor's supervision. It was because he could not endure a world in which thousands had seen him reduced to something less than a citizen, less than a man. They watched him weep and beg and break, like a common slave or a beast of burden. His world had watched him become nothing. His suicide wasn't viewed as a great loss. It was considered fitting, even necessary. It was the only available path for a man who had lost everything that defined a Roman life. This spectacle was not an anomaly. By the brutal standards of Rome, this was not excessive. This was Roman justice in its most unvarnished form. This was the consequence for those who defied the social order in a civilization that held honor as more sacred than life itself. A society that understood humiliation could be a far more potent punishment than mere death. A culture that believed erasing a person's reputation was the ultimate form of state-sanctioned justice. This is the reality of the most dreadful public degradations in ancient Rome. These are not the sanitized deaths often portrayed in films. There are no heroic falls upon a sword or stoic poisonings where heroes offer parting words of wisdom. These punishments were meticulously crafted to peel away every layer of what made an individual Roman, stripping them of their identity, their status, and their humanity in the eyes of their peers. These were rituals of shame so profound that even some Romans privately questioned if the cruelty had outstripped the crime. And these accounts are preserved for us, recorded in historical records, legal statutes, and the works of philosophers. They are the testimonies of those who lived through or witnessed humiliations widely understood to be a fate worse than dying. Before we delve further into this darkness, you must grasp what you are about to witness and why it still resonates today. The Romans chronicled their methods of public shaming with chilling precision. We possess legal documents that outline the exact procedures. We have historical accounts describing real cases. We have the writings of thinkers like Cicero and Seneca, who wrestled with the morality of these punishments. They debated whether a society founded on such methodical degradation could truly call itself civilized. The sources are shockingly plentiful. The practices I'm about to detail are confirmed in ancient texts that have endured for 2 millennia. To comprehend how honor-based cultures maintain control through systematic humiliation, you have to understand these stories. How can punishment be engineered to destroy an identity instead of just a body? How do entire societies normalize cruelty for the sake of order? You must hear these accounts in their complete, unsettling truth. Roman society, during the late Republic and early Empire, was built upon a rigid and intricate system of social status, personal honor, and public image that influenced every part of life. A Roman's sense of self was not primarily individualistic as we understand it today. It was communal, defined almost exclusively by how you were perceived and regarded by others. Your dignitas, your honor and influence, hinged on holding the respect of your equals and the deference of those below you. Should you lose that respect, you would effectively stop existing as a social person, even while your body lived on. You would become an invisible man walking through a city that no longer recognized you as one of its own. The idea of Dignitas wasn't some vague philosophical concept. It had tangible, real-world manifestations that any Roman could see and measure. Elites with high dignitas were given priority seating at the gladiatorial games and in the theaters, placed in the front where they could be seen by all. They were greeted with reverence on the streets, with commoners stepping aside for them. Their words held immense power in Senate debates, their votes shaping the future of the Republic. They could anticipate favorable outcomes in legal battles, as judges were more likely to trust their word. They had access to huge networks of patronage that created financial and political opportunities for their entire families. All of this was contingent upon preserving their honor, on being seen as worthy of that respect each and every day. For the Roman elite, particularly senators and equestrians, honor was connected to several factors that demanded constant maintenance. Your ancestry and family name were paramount in a culture obsessed with lineage. Romans maintained meticulous genealogies and could recite the accomplishments of their forefathers for generations, listing every consulship, military victory, and public accolade. A man from a storied patrician family began life with inherited dignitas that a newcomer had to struggle immensely to build. Your wealth was also essential, but not for personal luxury. Romans expected their leaders to display wealth through public generosity, sponsoring games, constructing temples or aqueducts, and maintaining a grand household that reflected their high status. A senator who became poor lost dignitas because poverty implied incompetence. Your military service added a layer of honor that was almost untouchable. Romans prized martial valor above nearly all other traits. A man who led armies to victory, who had been granted a triumph, the greatest military celebration, earned a level of dignitas that would follow him for life. A Roman's glory was forged in public. Public office also conferred honor within a strict hierarchy. Reaching the position of consul, the highest office, was the zenith of a political career, granting a permanent status that benefited your children. Your personal conduct was just as critical as these public feats. Elite Romans were expected to be true to their word, to protect their clients, to show deference to superiors, and to display proper authority over subordinates. A man who broke an oath or acted cowardly lost respect, even if his wealth and name were intact, because he had proven himself unworthy. But what was the single most important quality of all? Most vital was your ability to project gravitas, that aura of seriousness, dignity, and absolute self-possession that elite Romans were expected to display constantly. A senator who lost his gravitas, who was publicly mocked, who showed weakness in a crisis, could no longer function. Other senators wouldn't listen to him. The people wouldn't vote for him. His career was over. His family's reputation was ruined. His clients would seek new patrons who still commanded respect. In numerous documented cases, the shamed individual chose suicide over living in a state of perpetual disgrace. And Roman society saw such an act as the only honorable choice left. Understanding this ironclad system of honor is key to grasping why the punishments I've described were so catastrophic and why they were considered worse than death itself. When Marcus Livius stood in the forum, stripped and beaten, what was truly being demolished was not his body, but his entire social world. If you find this exploration of Roman justice thought-provoking, please press the like button and subscribe to Winds of Thought for more stories that challenge our modern perspective.